Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nathaniel R. Martin YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be doing another madness bracket, if you will. This time, it's for the highest grossing movie of each year. So, the biggest box office turnout domestically in the United States over the past 32 years are going head to head. Anyone have to do any crazy catching up?
I watched one, two, three, four or five movies in preparation for this the past 3 days.
I watched none of these movies in preparation and instead opted to watch Days of Future Past twice.
We've got Rain Man up against Fatal Attraction.
I really like both of these movies. I wasn't around when both of these movies came out, but I feel like Fatal Attraction was one of those movies that you talk to your coworkers about at work and oh, you got to see this movie.
Rain Man, I think it was like a great way to take Tom Cruise into becoming a kind of serious, well-recognized actor.
I feel like between both of these movies, Fatal Attraction has definitely been aped a lot. During a period of about a year when I was working at a movie theater, there were 3 movies that came out that were Fatal Attraction. But Rain Man is my favorite X-Man.
Is Rain Man a superhero movie?
I think it is. He has a genetic mutation and he uses it to cheat at cards.
And I think it gave people a different perspective when it comes to autism. So I think even with the glaring flaws of the autism itself in the movie, I think it had a positive impact on people.
I've seen Rain Man, so I'm going to go with Rain Man.
All right, Rain Man is moving on. Up next, we got a 90s throwback round. We got Independence Day up against Armageddon.
Oh boy.
These are two very similar movies.
Very similar. I've thought about this for a while today, and
you've just been pondering on this question.
Which cast I think had better chemistry. I think overall, Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis at the end, I felt more of a connection between those two characters than just Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum making jokes as they're flying out of that alien.
Come on, you're sleeping on the supporting cast of Independence Day right now.
I feel like between the two, I would say Independence Day has the better cast.
Armageddon sucks, but I like watching it.
Same. I get that from both of these movies.
I actually enjoy an Independence Day. I can watch it every year, whereas Armageddon, I'd be fine if I never saw it again.
The whole president's speech that is still quoted all the time.
Dude, what if Trump just says that in the next press conference?
The 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice.
Honestly, if he says just "we will not go quietly into the night," everyone's gonna lose it.
Elon Musk is behind him.
We will not go quietly into the night.
Are we cool with Independence Day?
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
You know, it's really nice to have such a non-passionate debate with you guys after after that Pixar video.
Hold that thought. Look what's coming next.
We've got Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone up against Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers.
Harry Potter, the Sorcerer's Stone, I think was a great introduction to these characters. We're talking about 3 10-year-old actors, 3 child actors.
And 2 of them were good.
Leave Ron alone.
Oh, I wasn't talking about Rupert Grant.
I think he's talking about Emma Watson.
What's wrong with Emma Watson? I actually really like Hermione.
I agree with Josh. However, I think that the biggest triumph in The Sorcerer's Stone isn't the introduction of the cast. I think it's the introduction of the world.
For a lot of people, this was kind of their generation's Star Wars.
But this is one of the only first movies in a franchise that we have on the list. Almost everything else is a sequel.
I'm not a huge fan of Sorcerer's Stone. Probably because I've seen it at least 16 times, whereas some of the other movies I've only seen once.
And it has the most Hagrid screen time, and he is one of the best characters in that franchise.
Because Hagrid and his amazing beard show up the most in Sorcerer's Stone, I think Sorcerer's Stone is beating The Two Towers. So we've got Pirates: Dead Man's Chest up against The Dark Knight.
Both these movies are sequels.
Okay,
Curse of the Black Pearl, really good movie. Great movie, but then Dead Man's Chest was okay, this can actually be a franchise. It's on par with a superhero movie.
And I think Dead Man's Chest is certainly a more financially viable movie than Black Pearl, but it is not a better movie. And I also think there's a better Pirates movie on this list. And I think The Dark Knight is hands down the best of its trilogy.
I prefer every single movie in the Dark Knight trilogy to every single movie in the Pirates trilogy.
You haven't watched those movies since you were 4 years old.
That's not true. I watched Curse of the Black Pearl the other day.
Wait, you think Batman Begins is better than Curse of the Black Pearl?
Yeah.
Shit take. You talk about the innovations into CGI characters like Jar Jar Binks and Gollum. I feel like Davy Jones was a huge step in that. To me, Davy Jones still looks great.
Yes. I do agree with that.
The practical effects of The Dark Knight are crazy.
Yeah, they're great.
Anyway, that's why Dark Knight moves on.
We've got Terminator 2 Judgment Day up against Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade.
Well, I'd argue the chemistry between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford is a lot more entertaining than the chemistry between Arnold Schwarzenegger and whatever that kid's name was.
John Connor?
Well, no, the actor's name. I don't know the actor's name.
Oh, who cares?
Indiana Jones feels like a complete trilogy.
It does not feel like a complete trilogy.
Maybe not to you. I like Temple of Doom, but that's not the movie we're talking about.
But what's the proper order of watching this trilogy? Do you watch the original movie, then it's...
Whatever you want.
No. When these movies were released, at least with Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, there's a direct way to watch them because they're named 1 and 2.
What, are you going to watch Rise of the Machines? No, because it sucks. Do you know what doesn't suck? It's the third Indiana Jones movie, a great trilogy.
But are we talking about franchises here, or are we talking about...
I'm just saying Last Crusade.
Because if we're talking about singular movies, Terminator 2 is the best Terminator movie.
I think that we're losing sight of what we're supposed to be talking about here. They avoid Judgment Day at the end of Terminator 2, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, never mind. Then they do just save the day.
Until Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation.
Until Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Guys, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying just these movies.
All right, Alden, you've seen both of these movies, right? What's your tip?
I'm just gonna say Terminator.
Dude, okay, when people think of Indiana Jones, what do they think of? They think of the fedora, they think of the whip, they think of being in a desert and going through an adventure and solving a puzzle.
Okay, Nate, but you say that, but then let me ask you right now, what's your personal favorite Indiana Jones movie?
Yeah, my personal favorite Indiana Jones movie is The Last Crusade.
And a lot of people, I think, agree with you.
The fact that I can confidently say that Judgment is better than The Last Crusade and it's my favorite Indiana Jones movie says a lot to how much better Terminator 2 Judgment Day is than Last Crusade.
Alden still voted for T2, so T2 should fairly move on.
Up next, we've got Die Hard with a Vengeance up against Mission Impossible 2.
All I'm going to say is that I haven't seen Mission Impossible 2, but I doubt that there's anything in it as entertaining as Bruce Willis standing on that street corner.
Yeah, I agree.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 up against The Avengers.
Two surprisingly similar movies.
Kinda, yeah.
My vote would go towards Avengers.
I honestly can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Deathly Hallows Part 2 needs to move on here. Deathly Hallows Part 2 was the end of an era, whereas The Avengers is not the peak of the new era, in my opinion.
You know what? I felt like I had to make the argument for Avengers because it was the popular pick, but Nate has sold me. Now I'm going full tilt Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Coming into this, I was leaning more towards Avengers, just because of the franchise that kind of got built on top of it. But yeah, Deathly Hallows being as good a conclusion as it is great. So I'm fine with that moving forward.
Up next, we've got Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, up against Captain America Civil War.
I watched it yesterday. I did. Force Awakens is just way better in my opinion.
Star Wars, The Force Awakens probably had one of the biggest hype cycles that we'll ever see this generation.
Yeah, why are we even talking about this? Force Awakens wins.
Aladdin up against The Lion King.
Before we even start, who's going with what?
Aladdin.
I'm also going with Aladdin.
I'm on Lion King.
I'm also on Lion King's side. Oh boy.
I'm not really a fan of Lion King.
But you like Lion King 1.5.
But Alden also says that he likes 1.5 more than the original.
Way more than the original. I don't care for the story of Lion King. I never have. I've never been a fan of Lion King. Like,
You hate Shakespeare? You hate Hamlet?
I don't even care for Hamlet. It's not my favorite Shakespeare.
I have to agree with that one.
As someone who played Hamlet in Hamlet, I agree. What's your favorite scene in each of these movies, Jory and Josh?
Whenever I think of Aladdin, I always think of the Prince Ali Ababwa sequence and the Whole New World sequence.
I don't know. When I think of Lion King, I think of the opening sequence. I think that's one of the best opening sequences in any movie, really. I think it's really iconic.
Do we want to have Alyssa as a tiebreaker since it seems like we're not going to get anywhere? Hey, Alyssa, Lion King or Aladdin? She likes Aladdin better.
Hang on. I'm going to ask my girlfriend. Be right back. Hey, Aladdin or Lion King?
Aladdin.
Okay, thanks. Aladdin's moving on. All right, we got Titanic up against Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
This is preference, I guess, but I want to say a Phantom Menace.
It's hard to say that Titanic is not the winner here, just when we're speaking about the most financially successful movies list.
I mean, it was a Goliath for a long time until James Cameron just went.
Another one.
Titanic is king of the world.
Up next, we got Lord of the Rings: Return of the King up against Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
I'm not even. Return of the King's moving on.
Josh, you really don't want to make an argument for your favorite Harry Potter movie?
Yeah, this is my favorite Harry Potter movie.
Return of the King's moving on, Nate.
Okay, we got Pirates at World's End over Avatar.
Is it a hot take to say Avatar?
Well, actually, you know what? Avatar kind of sucks. But I kind of didn't like At World's End either.
Does James Cameron still think 3D TVs are the future?
I think that Avatar is a better movie because of a character named Papa Dragon.
There's like so many more iconic characters in At World's End than I can't even think of.
Josh, I wasn't serious.
Yeah, he was being facetious, dude. Chill.
No, I'm not going to fight for Avatar.
Pirates at World's End is moving on. All right, up next, we got Ghost versus Jurassic Park.
But I'm going to say Jurassic Park.
Ghost was also a critical success in terms of it was nominated for like 4 Academy Awards.
Really?
Whoopi Goldberg won for supporting actress, and it was nominated for Best Picture that year.
Wow.
Whoopi Goldberg won 4 Best Supporting Actress awards.
Yeah, she was the Octavia Spencer of her day.
Nice.
Jurassic Park was the first movie that like made me scared. I knew more names of dinosaurs as a 4-year-old than I do now as a grown man. My dad was like, you love dinosaurs, you're going to love Jurassic Park. This is going to be great. Showed me the movie, and Newman's arm gets bitten off by a fucking velociraptor, and I had to sleep in my parents' bedroom.
That's exactly what happened to me.
I did not grow up with Jurassic Park. I grew up with Jurassic Park 3.
That explains a lot.
I saw Jurassic Park for the first time when they re-released it in IMAX, and I loved it.
Jurassic Park is moving on. We got Shrek 2 versus Toy Story 3.
All right, guys, let's all say it together. Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
Shrek 2 is moving on.
All right, we got Frozen up against Transformers: Age of Extinction.
I don't like either of these movies, but it's going to be Frozen, right?
The last fight of the first round is Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, up against Avengers Endgame.
Last Jedi, it's a better movie. It just sucks for the Star Wars universe, whereas Endgame is one of the best movies for the MCU.
I don't even know what to say on that one.
I think Endgame was a very nice conclusion, but at the same time, it wasn't a conclusion to fucking anything because the MCU's still going on.
I think that The Last Jedi is only going to get more appreciation as time goes on, because out of the sequel trilogy, it's the only one that really stands on its own. It pushes the other 2 movies in its trilogy down in order to raise itself up.
So we're all in agreement that Endgame's going.
Yeah, I agree with Endgame going up.
Yeah.
I don't think I could fight this.
Into the second round. We're gonna go through these just real quick, and if we have a tie, we're gonna debate it. Rain Man versus Independence Day. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Rain Man.
Independence Day. As far as this list is concerned, I think Independence Day is more of what we're looking for something to move on here.
I would probably take Rain Man over Independence Day because in terms of scope and special effects and great trailers, there are things that do that job better further down this list than Independence Day.
I agree with that. I'll go with Rain Man.
We've got Sorcerer's Stone up against The Dark Knight. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Sorcerer's Stone.
The Dark Knight.
And I don't like Sorcerer's Stone. After probably the 12th viewing of Sorcerer's Stone, I just stopped liking
it. But Alden, do you think that a movie that you thought was worth watching a dozen times is bad?
Not all of those are voluntary. I had an art teacher in middle school who would play it during long class periods.
I feel like this is the most children-friendly Harry Potter movie, and when we're talking about highest grossing movie, we're not talking about just adults going to see this movie.
All right, well, I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone has dethroned The Dark Knight and is moving on to the next round. Up next, we've got Terminator 2 Judgment Day versus Die Hard with a Vengeance. 3, 2, 1.
Terminator 2. It's probably a better movie.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 versus Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. 3, 2, 1.
Force
Awakens.
Episode 7.
Force Awakens is moving on.
Yeah, my favorite.
Up next, we've got Aladdin versus Titanic. 3, 2, 1.
Titanic.
Aladdin.
All right, so Titanic's moving on. Up next, we got Return of the King versus Pirates at World's End. 3, 2, 1.
Return
of the King.
At World's End. The thing that I will give At World's End over Return of the King is that I feel like the climax of At World's End is very much more significant than the climax of Return of the King.
But the whole point of the Lord of the Rings movies is not about the small wars. There's a reason a lot of the screen time is devoted to Frodo and Sam trying to dispose of the ring. That's the main focus.
But that battle doesn't feel significant to me because I know none of the main characters are dying in that battle.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
Return of the King is actually a conclusion.
Got him.
We're moving on to Jurassic Park versus Shrek 2. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Right. Shrek 2.
Frozen versus Avengers Endgame. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Frozen.
Endgame.
Thanos.
I also vote Thanos car.
We had one for Thanos car, one for Avengers Endgame, and one for Frozen. So, Alden, it's your debate. Avengers Endgame versus Frozen.
So wait a minute. Are we actually going to pretend like we didn't just get 3 votes for Endgame?
I'll start with Disney Princess versus highest grossing franchise of all time. Endgame is leagues better than Infinity War. Apparently Frozen 2, from most of the people I've talked to, is better than Frozen. Frozen is the lesser of its 2 movies, whereas Endgame is the better of its 2 movies.
I would disagree. I think everything that's interesting about Endgame is only interesting because of Infinity War. If they just write original movies, they still have the opportunity to make a lot of money. And, you know, Frozen's the last Disney princess, Disney animated movie that I've given a shit about. It's pretty good.
To not have at least Endgame in the next round, I feel like it's just doesn't feel right when it comes to when we're talking about blockbuster movies in this era.
All right, sounds like Avengers Endgame's moving on. Semifinals. This is the Elite 8 of the highest grossing movies of each year from the past 32 years.
Did we finally make it in the second round? Because I'm like 6 or 7 White Claws in.
Yeah, I think you should switch to water. We're through the second round. We're actually going third.
Oh, shit.
So we got Rain Man up against Sorcerer's Stone. 3, 2, 1.
Sorcerer's Stone.
Rain Man. So we'll just do Sorcerer's Stone. Terminator 2 versus Force Awakens. 3, 2, 1.
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens.
Terminator 2.
Give Terminator 2 a shot.
Picking up where episode 6 leaves off, it was all about just making a cash printing machine. And while that's fine, in this round, they're going up against the king of cash printing machines in cinema, James Cameron. And his first movie to really bring home bank was Terminator 2. And honestly, I think Terminator 2 is a better crowd-pleasing film, but outside of our generation, I don't think this is even close. I think people that grew up with the original Star Wars would pick Terminator 2 in this round.
It's a panel full of guys in their mid-20s, so I don't give a shit about that point.
We're not in our mid-20s.
Early 20s.
Josh, you don't even have to say it. You can just say, okay, boomer, to Nate's whole argument.
Since you brought up crowd-pleasing, when I think of crowd-pleasing, I literally think of Force Awakens. I don't think there was a film in our generation that has been more crowd-pleasing.
Endgame?
No, I don't think Endgame was more crowd-pleasing.
Jory just said he didn't like the movie and said that Endgame was still an epic conclusion and still said it had epic moments. That's way more crowd-pleasing than clapping when the Millennium Falcon shows up.
I grew up in a small town, and our local theater was filled to the fucking end. I feel like that has to be significant where...
Here's the thing, though, Josh.
Here's the thing, I'm still talking. So, Force Awakens.
Trying to say that Force Awakens was the most crowd-pleasing movie ever, and I knew people who hated Force Awakens when it came out.
Yeah, me too.
Great. Star Wars fans hate Star Wars. We know this, but let me talk about Force Awakens for a second.
But how can you call it crowd-pleasing, man?
Because Star Wars fans are fucking idiots.
Oh, just take it easy, man.
I definitely think that Nate had the better argument, but I'm still on Force Awakens' side here.
So Force Awakens is moving on over Terminator 2. We've got Titanic up against Return of the King. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Return of the King.
Return of the King.
It sounds like everyone's on board for Return of the King taking over Titanic. We got Shrek 2 versus Avengers Endgame. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
So we're in the final four. The top four highest grossing movies of the past 32 years are Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and Shrek 2.
I guess this replaces the fantasy bracket that we should have done.
Sort of. We've got Sorcerer's Stone versus Force Awakens.
To me personally, Force Awakens is just a better movie. But I watched Force Awakens yesterday. I still love it. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies.
As far as cultural impact and impact within their own franchise, I think it's impossible to say that Sorcerer's Stone doesn't have that in spades more than Force Awakens does. I think that Sorcerer's Stone is a lot more respectable and is a lot more what I want to see when I see movies like this, and not more Force Awakens, not more reboots. I want to see new original stories, even if they're not completely original and they're based on books. I want to see new stories in the theater.
I was gonna go with Force Awakens, but I think Jory kind of persuaded me on this one. It's just poor judgment and poor script writing, where I think I have to give it to Sorcerer's Stone on this one.
Wow. I'm not even a Potterhead.
Hell yes.
Now we've got Return of the King versus Shrek 2. I'm going with Return of the King here, but I think Shrek 2 is one of those movies that has had such a lasting impact on the film industry, because every year we get like 8 or 9 or sometimes even more CG animated movies. And if it weren't for Shrek 2 being the highest grossing movie of its year and being one of the highest grossing movies of all time, I think we wouldn't have that trend. All that being said, we're talking about the best movie here. And Shrek 2 is a good little comedy. It's one you can watch with just about anyone. But Return of the King is a great conclusion to a great trilogy.
I think Shrek 2 is a really good sequel to its original. I'm a sucker for third movies in the trilogy. Like, I love Return of the Jedi. I love Revenge of the Sith. I love Iron Man 3. I love Last Crusade.
At World's End.
I think Return of the King it was nominated for 12 Oscars for a reason. I think it's because it's one of the greatest fantasy movies ever made.
Shrek 2 also had a nomination at the Academy.
Return of the King, though, had 12 nominations, which wasn't it a record at the time?
Yeah, whatever. Doesn't even matter.
Return of the King won Best Picture.
But did it get nominated for Best Original Song?
Actually, I think it did. I think Enya's song did.
Did Shrek 2 get nominated for Best Original Song?
Yeah, Accidentally in Love.
Yeah, by the Counting Crows.
That's original. My biggest argument for this is there is no song cover better than Fairy Godmother singing Holding Out for a Hero. But the short sequence on their trip to Far, Far Away is hilarious, and it's been memed up.
Yeah, where Mary sings that song while what's-his-name like slobs all over that turkey leg.
I think if Mary was singing Holding Out for a Hero.
Could you
I
imagine?
think we'd find peak cinema. I appreciate your case, Alden, and I agree with everything you said, but it sounds like it's a 3-1. Return of the King is taking it. So here we are, finals for the best, highest grossing movie of the last 32 years. Honestly, guys, my expectations, considered them subverted. I did not think it was going to get down to these two movies.
I think I'm on Team Sorcerer's Stone.
I am also on Team Sorcerer's Stone. Return of the King is not my favorite Lord of the Rings movie. That's not saying that it's not fantastic, and I don't believe that it should be every step of the way where it is right now. That if we were having a conversation about Sorcerer's Stone versus Fellowship of the Ring, I think that I might sway a little differently, and maybe that's because I prefer beginnings versus endings. But as far as world building in Return of the King, everything has kind of been established. But I really just enjoy the magic of Harry Potter and still being amazed by that whole world and being brought into it for the very first time.
I don't have much of an argument left for Force Awakens. You've heard most of mine.
Wait, what?
Wait, this is Sorcerer's Stone and Return of the King.
Oh, yeah, I haven't been paying attention then. No, I'm going to have to say Sorcerer's Stone.
I feel like for For Jory and myself, this was kind of our generation Star Wars, where we were looking forward to the sequel of each film every time. And I think the first Harry Potter was kind of our
I
generation's
think
A New
between these
Hope.
two movies, Sorcerer's Stone is just one you can bring home to the whole family. Yes, so many bad series were started because Harry Potter was so good. And if it wins this because of that, then I can sleep at night. The best, highest grossing movie of the last 32 years, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Woo.
Yay.
Shrek 2.
Thank you for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Is there a movie on this list that you think should have made it further? Are you with Team Alden and think that Shrek 2 should have won it all? I don't blame you if you are, but leave a comment down below and let us know what you think. It sounds like people want a podcast, so I'm not calling it a podcast, but there may be a podcast.
And I wanna see.
Motherfuckers better know.